Hello. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. This first time coming to see my videos, welcome. I always like to start off with a disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a doctor. Damn sure I'm not a money person. So if you're here for any advice, shrug off. You won't find it here. Why? Because I'm nobody to you. With that said, I mentioned in my last video questions. It's one of the things that bothers me these days is I don't really hear any questions, especially from the media. Generally, if there is a question, it's the same one repeated over and over and over and over and over ad nauseum. Like a little kid with the whole mom thing. That's how annoying it is to hear those same questions that aren't really seeking an answer to anything. They're seeking to continue a narrative. Now, generally speaking, it's the questions you ask that are more important, almost sometimes, than the answers you get. I'll give you a really good example. I recently bought a 1983 Toyota pickup truck. And man, is this thing in fine condition. We're talking one owner, and I mean, dude, everything works, it runs great, yada yada yada. Catalytic converter was plugged up, but other than that, everything's just fine. Actually almost feels like brand new, even though it's 40 years old. Steering, everything, I mean, this puppy's tight. I paid a good price for it. And when I went around to friends and family who wheel and deal in older cars, I asked them straight up, what would you pay for this? I was shocked. It was less than half of what I did pay. I kept thinking to myself, man, did I really not do that well, huh? I mean, they're only willing to pay half or less than half what I paid. And then it struck me, I'm asking the wrong question. I turned to him and I said, okay, forget the whole what would you pay thing. What would you sell it for? Price doubled immediately. Not on all of them, some only up by 2/3. But the price went way up. I mean, sizably. The question was the difference, not the value in the vehicle. But its worth is not just what you pay for it, its worth is what you can get for it. So really with the two questions asked, I don't feel too bad. Those people I was telling you about, they buy low, sell high. So I don't feel too bad about the price I paid. And speaking to others, I feel a lot more comfortable with the price I paid. But it's still one of those things. The right question was needed. And a lot of stuff that we see going on today, we're not really getting the right question. Let me give you this. Okay. Here's a question for you. You hear all the time about the, how can I put it correctly? Reproductive health. We hear about it all the time. And it's said having an abortion is for the reproductive health. My question is, how is ending a pregnancy early the healthy thing for the reproductive cycle? Would it not be healthier for the cycle to complete? How is it made healthy by cutting it short? I mean, it was, let's say you go to the halfway point, all right, whatever. Times have changed. It used to be you were pregnant for 9 weeks. Now I guess it's like 10 weeks or some crazy stuff. But anyhow, so, or 9 months, 9 weeks. But now I guess it's like, however, they count it different. I'm a little older, so generally speaking, how is ending that pregnancy with an unsuccessful birth, which is the outcome of any healthy reproductive cycle. You know, if your chickens couldn't lay eggs that could reproduce, you wouldn't have more chickens. In general, eventually you'd be out of chickens. And kind of in that same way, isn't that what we're doing to our society? I hear, and this is a good question, I hear, especially in the cities, about how it's racist to stand up against having abortion. Okay? Anti-abortion, pro-life, whatever you want to call it. Nowadays that's considered racist. But at the same time, 70% of the abortions are black women. Okay? Not women of color. Alright? Because that throws everybody into the mix, basically. Black women. At the same time, they're 13% of the population. So explain to me how abortions aren't racist. I mean, everybody's saying by, me wanting to say or somebody else wanting to say, and honestly, I've made no statements in this way, but for me wanting to say, letting the reproductive cycle follow through is racist. Who's really the racist? After all, Marjorie Sanger, the lady who started Planned Parenthood, the abortion industry leader, by far. Nobody does more abortions than Planned Parenthood. More than likely, if you go there, you ain't having a kid. That's how many abortions they do. I mean, really, the likelihood of having a kid after you've gone to Planned Parenthood, those numbers are so diminished over the fact of not having one when you're done with all their stuff, done dealing with them. But we know she was into eugenics. Basically, she thought certain races were lesser, lower quality people, dullards, dimwits, morons, idiots. Even those in the more clinical listing. See, that's all the psychological stuff on how we measure people. But basically, she thought stupid people shouldn't be allowed to be born, and she thought, well, two stupid people are going to breed a stupid baby, or raise a stupid baby, which is just the opposite. You're just as likely to have a freaking Einstein out of two mentally deficients as you are if you put two Einsteins together. Alright? It's a gamble. You never know what you're going to get. But her and many others felt that way. So, having the success that she has had, now she's long gone, but still her system has had, aren't they all racist? Okay. Another one for you. Defunding the cops. Not wanting to defund the cops is racist. Yet at the same time, the people being most affected by that is the blacks in their communities that are denser. Alright, so let's say you're in a community where it's, let's say 60% black, and you take away the cops. Oddly enough, it doesn't curb the crime rate. And if you point that stuff out, you're the racist. Question there is, prove it. Prove I'm racist by wanting people to be able to sleep at night knowing their house and their possessions and their loved ones are safe. Prove to me how that is racist. But see, we don't ask that question. Question that's been on the back of my mind for a long time. Not top of mind like that beautiful idiot that they have in the White House, Carrie Pierre. But anyhow, okay, so during the riots on January 6th. Let's not go into how it started and who and what and all that. Let me point out, and many of you who watch these kind of videos, I'm sure know, Nancy Pelosi's daughter did a documentary kind of thing, what was going on. Now, of course, everybody's got the same question of, oh, why was she there? Yeah, it's a good question. Why the hell was she there? All right, she should not have been. But during the taping, there was a moment where she had said, I've been waiting for them to trespass. I wish Donald Trump would show up so I could punch him in the face. Now everybody and their brother was saying, did she really say she was going to punch him in the face? Would she really punch him in the face? I do not care. That is the dumbest freaking question. Some 70-year-old bat wants to whack some dude in the face because she doesn't like his opinions and his philosophies and his ideologies. Well, she's just as drunk old hag anyhow. No, the part that bothered me was when she said, I've been waiting for them to trespass. Why would she wait for them to trespass? Hold on a second. Hey, bud. Hey. Just a heads up. I've got 2 dogs that are down the alley. If they come, they're not biters. But if they come, they will charge. Do not be afraid. Okay? If they come at you and do that whole circling thing, I will come and they will sort out the fact that they did wrong real quick. I don't believe you're in any danger, but I thought I'd give you the heads up. Choice is yours, brother. I got your back. You can come on by. I'm just saying, they might charge. If they do, do not be afraid. The fear inspires dogs. Hey, you got to make sure people are safe. So, nobody's bothered by that question? Or nobody's bothered by that statement? Okay, so there's 2 questions. What did she mean? Why did nobody point it out? Why was that not part of the big story? Of course, you know, old bat wants to whack Donald Trump. You go to any Democrat Party meeting place and you will see and hear just that. A bunch of old ladies who would just love to smack Donald Trump. Then again, you go to the Republican side, the smacking they want to do ain't in his face. Maybe on his pud. But anyhow, in all seriousness, nobody's bothered by that? The fact that this lady was waiting for them to trespass. What was her inclination that they would? I mean, really, why would she think they would? At what point did she think they would? And why would she be waiting for it instead of saying, I'm in fear that they would? No. This lady was waiting for it. Yeah, that one just doesn't make too much sense to me. I got another question, and this is a question of so many people. Not so much the Democrats, which I'm neither Democrat nor Republican. I follow no affiliation. Okay? But the Democrats are the only one who do not have this question. How the hell did this dullard, deficient man that we now call president get elected? I do not believe there was that much we don't like Trump vote in an economy that was growing. Okay, we had less social strife. Oh sure, we had the BLM stuff, but everybody knows that was just a bunch of people who put together riots so they can get a narrative across. That, and so they can raise up campaign money that they can put back in the Democrat coffers. Everybody knows that. It's just so obvious. BLM. Yeah, what a con job they are. But seriously, This guy never came out of his place hardly. If he drew a crowd, it was a crowd of flies because he couldn't draw a crowd of people. And then, don't get me wrong, there were a few times there were a few hundred. I think they even had one where he had like 3,000 or 4,000. Ooh. And of course they used COVID to say, well, that's why people aren't showing up because of COVID. Donald Trump was running all around the country, bringing in 40, 50,000 people in a thing, and he lost. All right. Generally speaking, Democrats vote Democrat. Even a number of them were voting Republican for Donald Trump. It's a known fact. He switched a lot of people over to Republican just to vote for him. Not to vote for Republicans, to vote for him. The independents handle it. Now they say, oh, well, you know, it was the single moms. You kidding? He gave them more money. And everybody knows you give people money and they will give you their vote. I'm sorry, every president does it, every politician does it, because you never hear him say, ooh, we're taking money away. Don't get me wrong, I would love to hear that. But generally speaking, how? I mean, and we see now how much of an idiot he is. He'll go out and say something totally different from the narrative, and they'll go, oh, well, that's not what he meant, he misspoke, and what he had thought, he had just learned about that in the papers. Yeah, you're going to tell me this president finds out everything in the papers. First of all, he can barely read a teleprompter 6 feet away from him. That's about 32 inches across. And you're going to tell me he's reading newspapers? I mean, dude, his Coke bottle glasses would be like this thick. You know what I'm saying? No way. Okay. A lot of people say, well, it was the rules that were changing this and that. Well, honestly, I mean, even that doesn't really explain it. That's how bad a candidate that guy was. I mean, you know, it's not like he was talking about policies or anything, because you never saw him. He'd put a lid on it. I just love that. Every day, what, about 2 o'clock? Maybe lunchtime? Basically, what is a lid? There's a good question. What's a lid on it? Well, you know, when the kids are being bad or running around running their yaps, you tell them put a lid on it? Yeah, he didn't talk to anybody. He put a lid on it. Which, how appropriate would the man with the brain of a child should be told he had put a lid on it. But generally speaking, I mean, we're not asking good questions, people. Equity. Isn't that what you get out of your house after you've invested so much time and paid so much into it, and according to its value and such? How does that apply to a human? All right. Now, don't get me wrong. All right. Let's say a boss. He puts somebody through training. He brings them up through the positions in the company. He's developed equity in that employee because of the merit the employee has shown through his work and his advancements in his skills and his knowledge. Equity. Yet all of a sudden we're supposed to give everybody equity, no matter what. White, black, blah, 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 blah. Which, honestly, even to tie skin color to it, I think is stupid. But where do you get off on applying equity to a human in that way? Here's one for you, all right? And this is going to be fine question. These trannies, what do they call them? Transgender. Oh, yeah. Those knuckleheads. Yep, Barnum. Closed too soon. Could add so many more new clones. So anyhow, transgender. Well, trans means transitioning. And gender, your sex. So you're transitioning from one sex to another. When is it complete? When are you absolutely 100% from this sex to 100% that sex? Explain that to me. Because honestly, I mean, anybody who's, you know, you ask the, transsexual, such as Buck Angel, and we used to call them transvestites. When is change over, answer should be never. If they stop taking hormones, their body gets fucked up quick. All right, because it's trying to recoup something that lost years ago. Just it's a nightmare. You know what I mean? How come after transgender surgeries, gender, what do they call it, affirmation? Okay. How come those products don't work correctly? Okay. Maybe the woman who has the skin torn from her arm, shaped into basically a meat balloon, okay, and I'm sure a urethra kind of situation is set up so she can pee through it, okay. Does it, you know what I mean? Does it, are we talking loud and proud and hey baby look at this? Or are we talking basically a pickle with no potency? Alright, and then for those who turn their pickle into a pocket, why do they need to keep something in there or keep stretching it out so it will not close? Because a real one doesn't have that problem. And trust me, women put stuff in there, ain't no question. But they're not doing it to maintain its openness. Actually, you ask most women and most men, I think they would rather it a little more closed. So basically, what would happen, let's say a year, one of these pickle pocket people, all right, a year, they've done nothing but wash it and maintain it, shave it, keep it all nice, neat, clean, and healthy in that way. Would it still maintain its function? And I do not mean just urinating. I mean the pleasure receptor that one of those is supposed to be. Of course, you know what I'm saying. So, why doesn't it work? Are the doctors just that bad? And if it doesn't work, then have you truly transitioned? What about their hips? How long before they have hip surgery to widen them and to open the cervix? I mean, because honestly, women have hips. It's part of what men like them. You know? Whether it's childbearing or just a good set of hips, a hold-on set of hips. Yeah, if you don't know what a hold-on to a set of hips are, sorry. So anyhow, when are they going to start changing that? I mean, we know the dudes can shave old Adam's apple. It's just the stupidest thing, but okay, because they still basically look like a dude. Here's a question for that, and this one's going to probably piss off people. Most of the transgenders that I've seen, whether it's one of the 300 million different genders that there are, which apparently there's one for every day of the week now, you know, every day of the year. There you go. Sorry, that one just cracks me up. How come they're so freaking ugly? Oh my god, dude. You talk about women who couldn't get laid. They couldn't get laid in a man's prison with a fistful of pardons. And don't get me wrong, there are guys in prison who will give the man a sausage, you know what I mean? And there are men in prison who are willing to accept it. That's their thing. It's all part of the machine that goes on in the background. But generally speaking, these people are ugly. And I have no clue if, but and here's another question. Were they homely men too? Now I'm going to go with probably 50-50 on that one, if not more. Okay. Most of the ones I see are, how could I put it? Stuck with the I wasn't a good looking dude part of the transition, so somehow that stalled. And honestly, even the ones who have their faces done up, very few of them really look feminine. Okay. Another good question. How come feminists aren't feminine? Alright, let's start from the top with the feminists. First, you have honestly, the trans women. They're probably the biggest feminists. Yep. Then after that, I would have to go with what we call the bulls and the lesbian couple. Generally, they're not feminine. They're okay with it. I mean, they dress manly. They somewhat act manly. And don't get me wrong, I have seen a butch lesbian turn on feminine wiles to sway a super on a job site. Really. She was looking to get a little more time. He was pushing her for this and that. And she turned on the pet me kitten. She did. She switched it right on. And he went with it. Oh, okay, I guess I can give you a couple more days, but you need to get out of there so I can get so-and-so in. That's how my job works a lot of times. So generally speaking, though, that's two groups we know aren't feminine. And the uber straight, possibly bi, woman that calls herself a feminine or a feminist, they're not very feminine. Right? And then you start to get into women who are. Okay, the next group are the more girly lesbians. Okay, they like to dress up pretty. They like to dress up girly. Okay, and go about in a more feminine manner. Even if they are lesbian, you prefer lesbians or prefer women over men. The next feminine group, I think, would have to be your general woman. You know what I mean? Where they're not really a feminist. They just go about their life. They like to dress up for their man, which is a very feminine thing. They like to smell good in feminine ways. I mean, they're not putting on Old Shave or British Sterling or, I don't know, guys clothes. But at the same time, okay, even they are not quite as feminine as you get. Now, my preference for the more feminine woman is the girly girl. Okay. I'd even go as far as to say the ladies. Okay. Where they have certain mannerisms, certain manners, certain way they carry themselves, an air about them, very feminine. Generally, they can even be a little less attractive physically, but by being feminine, become a little more attractive and generally can balance things out pretty good with their femininity. And really, I mean, you don't get any more feminine than that. But they're not usually feminists. The average chick dudette, they're not really feminist. The somewhat feminist, you know what I'm saying? There's like a hierarchy in how feminine a woman is. And women who become feminist walk away from femininity more and more. Because, well, they don't need a man. No, I'm sorry, it's a very feminine thing to need a man. Now, not in all aspects, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, a feminine woman looks to have a man, perhaps a gentleman, in her life. Here's another thing. And this is a question that just I shake my head all the time about. Excuse me. Why is anybody other than a child's parent even speaking about anything sexual? Anything. Whether it's gender, personal proclivities, the activities and how to go about them, the appliances available to them, to adults actually, and things of that nature. Why? I'm an uncle, I've mentioned a number of times, I'm an uncle to a great number of kids. Never once have I talked to them about intercourse. Okay? Now don't get me wrong, you know, the brothers and I, you know, we generally will tease each other about certain aspects about women. You know, whether they're a loon, and don't get me wrong, us guys are assholes, that balances out the loon thing. Or whether they're fat, and that one balances out on both sides. You know what I mean? So we poke fun at each other, but I don't ask them anything about the getting to it kind of part. We really don't talk to it. As far as anybody under a specific age, no, and if they ask me, all right, which none have, all right, we're talking, Jesus, 50 years of nieces and nephews. My youngest is about 5. My oldest is rounding up on 50. I think it's 50. All right, because I think he's a little older than my brother, and my oldest brother is knocking on 50 like a bitch. So anyhow, generally speaking, what kind of person has it in their mind to speak to another person's child about intercourse, gender, the proclivities, the activities, anything to do with intercourse? I'm telling you right now, if I had a kid and somebody said anything to them about sex, there would immediately be one hell of an issue. One hell of an issue. Where would it go? Where would it lead? Depends on how they respond to my response. But my response is not going to be pleasant. And it would be so vulgar that it would just be a solid bleeping on YouTube. Because I'm kind of old-fashioned in the thought that nobody should be talking to your kids about any kind of intercourse. Ever. Shouldn't be in your schools. Your churches shouldn't do it. Now, I'll give the one exception to schools. Boshi, you be nice. Leave her alone. Myrtle, you're a good girl. You go on, baby. Alright. Health class in school. I had a health class in school. And that's, generally speaking, what was that? In the 70s? I know, the dark ages of the world, right? Back when man was still a man, woman. But anyhow, so back in the 70s when I was going to school, we had a health class. And at one point, I think it was 7th grade, health class was geared towards reproduction. I don't remember if it was just a semester. I don't think it was a whole year. But the way they had done it, and even, you know, we boys at the time, though we said otherwise, we understood. They gave us a general rundown. Okay, this is the two bodies. This is how the plumbing works. Then they separated it. The boys had their class. Learned about the sperm and, you know, testicles and how the whole thing works, you know. And I'm pretty certain the girls did too. Of course, I did have one of my classmates who was a neighbor later on go, yeah, the teacher said it's only as big as. I was a little bothered by that, but I was willing to prove the teacher wrong. Of course, we were young and she was a little shy, so I did not. But nonetheless, I'm happy to prove it. So generally speaking, I think to some degree, there is a permissible level of educating the kids about the different aspects of reproductive cycle and how it works. But as far as like how to do it, how to do it correctly, how to get the most joy out of it, things of that nature, no. It used to be that'd be considered lewd and lascivious. The kind of thing that gets you on that list, the kind of list that makes your neighbors go, no kids, stay away from him or her. Generally it's a him. And oddly enough, it was a her. It would depend on the her, because a lot of fathers be going, damn, you hit that. Some other fathers be going, no, you can do better. I know she's older, you can do better. Hey, it's as real as it gets right there. But generally speaking, the fathers and the mothers had always in the past talked about the birds and the bees. Now, of course, nowadays the kids can find out at about 7 or 8. All they have to do is Google it. And I don't care what kind of things. Oh, she stopped. All right, she's wanting to come hang out. Generally speaking, no, is the kids can find out. All right, and that's kind of a natural thing. And a lot of what I learned was talking with the homies. You know what I mean? The porno that was thrown out in the woods so that you could check it out. Give you thoughts. We'll say young man in his fancies. But generally speaking, that's how sex education was. The parents and basically your peers. And there you go. You would learn all about it. You know what I'm saying? So why in the world is anybody talking about that kind of stuff with the little ones? At all. And honestly, below 18 especially. Once you hit 18, that's that kind of funny thing. I think older people should leave them alone. But at the same time, it's what we consider legal. I know. That one's a tough one. Okay. And I say it's tough, but let me ask you this. The Olsen twins, Kate and Elizabeth? I think the one is still doing movies. I think she was in the Marvel movies. She's got a couple other things. Not really that good of an actress, but she did okay. And don't get me wrong, I don't imagine I can be better, but I've seen better. Generally speaking, no. They were on a show as young girls. Two cute blondes. I never thought they were that appealing. Alright? Not that much older than me. And generally speaking, as they came into maturity, they blossomed. You know what I mean? The chest started to fill out. The face started to define into a more womanly shape, as young girls do. When they turned 18, America celebrated. Isn't that a little sick? Here's a question for you. Wasn't that a little sick that the nation celebrated these two twin girls being 18, being legal? Okay, trust me, twins are a big part of men's fantasy. If a man sees a beautiful set of twins, and I imagine women too, alright? I've had women voice curiosities. Boshi, stop being such a meanie. Alright, so anyhow, it's appreciable that either sex would like a set of twins. But generally speaking, there's that weird thing though. They turned 18 and celebrated. It was on the news. Oh, today in the news, Kate and, the Olsen twins turned 18. Yeah. Wasn't in the news when they turned 19. Wasn't in the news when they turned 17. Was in the news when they turned 18. Yeah. that one actually bothered me. I don't know if anybody else felt that way. Now, don't get me wrong, I, generally speaking, can't argue the twin thing. Some men, it's their dream. Not quite mine, but I would damn sure jump on that train if I had a chance to ride it. But anyhow, you see, it's really about the questions we ask. We're not asking good questions. Alright? With the, oh my God, what is it? The, Twitter thing. Okay? We know that the government was in there spying. We know that they were manipulating voters prior to the election by having opposing thoughts from one candidate, basically, or from one party, buried, and the other party was being shown more. Isn't that election interference? How come there's no legal ramifications? Okay? Because obviously it had an effect. There was no question that kind of thing had an effect. Will there ever be ramifications? You know what I mean? That's a good question. I got a good question for you. Was Mrs. Brooks wrong? In 5th grade, I had a teacher named Mrs. Brooks. Fine teacher. I've mentioned her before. She was an English teacher. Very well-spoken lady. I have a feeling she was well-read, too. I adored her. She had chutzpah, as the Jews would say. Gall, nerve, things of that nature. She actually, after it became illegal to do biblical things in the classroom, such as pray, she would read from the Bible and pray. And when some of the kids asked her, well, ma'am, you're not allowed to do that. And they literally told the teacher, ma'am, you're not allowed to do that. She says, I taught most of the teachers in this school. Ain't nobody gonna say, or isn't anybody gonna say anything about it. Yeah, she wasn't big on ain't. But my question was she wrong about? And this is what I'm curious. Because in today's world, I think she would be. Now, not in my book. I think she nailed it. She did it well. So, moving into Florida in the 70s, yeah, now you know the neck of the woods I lived in. Right? Moving to Florida in the 70s, I found out real quick you were basically white or black. Okay. Now me, up north, I was considered Italian. So that whole thing is like, well, not really white. You know what I mean? But I guess I'm white. And fortunately, you know, being in school later came the GDIs. God damn individuals is what that stands for. I don't know how YouTube's gonna take that. But anyhow, basically, that was me. I was an individual. I wasn't gonna go for the white or black thing, or hippie or redneck or any of that. I was just me. Even at a young age, I was just me. Okay, which, honestly, something I do prescribe. Just be yourself. But Mrs. Brooks was black. And I mean, not the darkest of black, but not the light-skinned black either. She was black. Now, generally speaking, she's well respected by most of the students. I respected her. She spoke well with everybody. She was never mean, never had a harsh tone, with except on one occasion. There was a student, and I could not remember his name if you paid me, but there was a student who said, "Mrs. Brooks, my dad said I don't have to listen to a colored person." It's in the 70s. It's only 10 years after that whole thing where, the equal rights, or not equal rights, the civil rights amendments kicked in. Not real happy about applying civil to rights, right, or liberties. You either have a right or liberty or whatever. Adding a civil to it takes away from the other aspects. Whole nother thing. Back to Mrs. Brooks. So, 10 years after the civil rights movement, a white student asks this black teacher, or says to this black teacher, "My dad says I don't have to listen to no colored people." Got the whole redneck slang thing going on and everything. At that time I still sounded like a Yankee. Wow. Mrs. Brooks came alive. It was an impressive moment. She looked at that young boy and says, "What color am I?" And he's like, "You're black." She goes, "That's right. I'm not yellow. I'm not green. I'm not fuchsia. I don't remember all the colors." She went through a list of colors. "I am black. Don't you forget that. Don't ever call me color. I am black." And that was it. She didn't hold it against the kid. Never showed that kid any animosity or anything. Great woman in my book to deal with that kind of commentary in a matter of fact, and then we're done with it. She didn't drone on about it, nothing like that. It was really, she was simple. But was she wrong? I mean, we hear nowadays, black people are people of color. Well, I would love to hear her thoughts on that some too many years later. She probably wouldn't go for the African American either. Because honestly, there's many nations in Africa. Many. To say you're African American, and I mentioned it in a conversation with Dude. Alright? Ethiopians are Ethiopians. Okay? Kenyans are Kenyans. I'm not sure about all the other nations. There is one Africa. I think it's called South Africa and Africa or something like that. I forget that. That map has changed so many times over the years, I don't recall. I mean, nothing personal, but it's not really a part of the world where I pay much attention. No more than the Middle East. So, I mean, I have some understanding, some familiarity, but I don't really pay no mind to the nations these days. I mean, I know there's wars going on. You got the Yemen, Somali thing. There's all kinds of chaos over there. I even know a little bit about the history of some of those nations. Okay. But generally speaking, was she wrong? Was she an African American? Was she a person of color? What's the other one? There's some other new name they have for them. I don't know. So, I understand words change and whatnot. But, was she wrong? No. No, she's the most spot-on person I ever knew in my life. So my question is to you, can you come up with better questions? Really, come up with better questions. Don't repeat the same questions everybody else does. You know what I mean? Come up with better questions. I mean, honestly, that's how we progress. Asking the same stupid question, regurgitating the questions on any of the news medias, any of the social medias, and if you notice, all the same question over and over. Are you asking the right questions? Are you getting the answers you hope to get? Or are you just getting the same regurgitated answer to the same regurgitated question? Alright? So, hopefully I made my point with that. It's about the question. It's about how you ask the question. And to some degree, even tone of it matters. But nonetheless, what are you trying to achieve as far as an answer? Are you trying to achieve an unknown? Are you trying to achieve a known? If you're trying to achieve a known, then just stop and think about the question. Much like the whole buying and selling the vehicle thing. The value of your question will go up if you come up with the right question. Really. Alright, one last one. That Mayorkas guy. Alright, he said the border is closed. Define closed. Explain to us what you mean by a closed border. Would be a good question. And I'm not going to go on. That's my final one. But really, think about it. Ask the right questions and get the right answers. Ask a better question, get a better answer. Alright, well, as always, for those who've sat through my rambling, I really appreciate your time. It's the most valuable thing you have, and if you shared it with me, I appreciate it. Because, well, I'm nobody. And with that, I've got a person that I've got a number for. I'm going to try and get him in here in the next week or so. As well as another that's a bit of a wanderer. If I can pin him down, we'll have some interesting conversations. He's an old friend I've known for many years. I know him because his father is one of the best friends I have these days. But generally speaking, I intend to continue trying to put one out every week. So, thanks for coming. And with that, I'm out of here.